You're listening to Brandon Sports Talk, interviewing professional athletes and Paralympians and Olympians. And now for your professional athlete interview and your host, Brandon P.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the former U.S. Paralympian para snowboarder Arlene Cohen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are
You?
you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get into the sport of para snowboarding?
I became an amputee in 2009, and I was determined that I was going to snowboard again. So in the winter of 2011, my husband and I and the kids head out to Breckenridge in December, and I was so disappointed. I could not snowboard on my prosthetic. But we're coming down, and there was a thing going on called the Hartford Ski Spectacular. I had no clue what this was. All I know is I saw a bunch of other adaptive athletes out there, and I said, I want to do that. So the following year, we registered for it, and I went out there and I met Amy Purdy. And I spoke to her a little bit, and I said, I want to be a Paralympian snowboarder. And that's how I got on board that I'm going to do this.
Of course, what was that like getting to compete in snowboarding as an able body, and then once you had that accident, you were able to compete as a Paralympian?
So I didn't never competed as an able-bodied athlete. I did snowboard for about 15 years before I did lose my leg, and I snowboarded all over the world and the country, but never competitively as an able-bodied athlete.
Of course, what was that feeling like getting into adaptive sports and competing in para snowboarding?
It was unreal. Um, when I found out that I was going to actually be able to compete and try to make the Paralympic team, I was like beside myself. Like I couldn't believe that this was actually going to happen. I'm going to have the opportunity to make the Paralympic team.
What was it like getting to train and compete to then go on to the Paralympics?
So the training was not easy. I would train on snow like 4 or 5 days a week and then go to the gym 2 or 3 days a week. And then the nutrition that was involved in it, it was a lot of work to get there. Well worth every bit of it, but a lot of work. And I was also an older athlete. So that made things a little more, not difficult, but it was a different type of challenge than my younger teammates.
What was that feeling like getting to make the Team USA team?
So when I made the Paralympic USA team, it was a feeling that I have made it. All this work and energy that I've put into this has actually paid off when I made that team.
Of course, how has that been like balancing being a Paralympian and also working as a paramedic?
So I was a firefighter paramedic when I started training for the Paralympics, and I did both of them at the same time for about 2 years. Then it just became way too much. I couldn't keep up doing both. I was actually a firefighter in South Florida where there is no snow. So I would have to take a lot of time off, and people would work for me, and I would travel to the mountains to train. So in 2014, I decided it's time to retire from firefighting in December of 2015 because I knew I wanted to pursue being a Paralympic athlete. So I retired from one and did the other one full time.
Of course, during that time, what was it like balancing being a firefighter and helping people versus obviously being a athlete, a professional athlete?
So um, It was difficult. It was difficult because I was living two lives at one time, and two very different lives at one time. I was in South Florida helping people. We had all kinds of different calls, injuries and fires, and then I would come to the mountains and train on a snowboard for a few months, and then go back to South Florida and do the firefighting again. So it was a lot of juggling, and it was a challenge at the time.
What was that like getting into the sport of para snowboarding?
Getting into the sport of para snowboarding was the best decision I could have made for myself. Since I was never a able-bodied snowboarder, but all of a sudden here I am as a snowboarder now with a prosthetic. It was just an unreal feeling to be there, to be able to do that now.
What was that like, obviously, getting into the sport of winter sports and competing in snowboarding?
So when before I became an amputee, I did other types of sports. I mountain biked, I did adventure races, I ran a lot. So none of these things I did before was like Paralympic snowboarding. And it just took a little getting used to having that type of training for me to do.
Of course, when you made the Team USA team, what was that feeling like getting to put on that Team USA gear?
So when I made the Paralympic USA team, it was a feeling of accomplishment. It was a feeling that I've made it. I deserve to be here. I can't believe I'm actually doing this. That was my immediate reaction to it.
Of course, what was the preparation like leading into the 2018 season going to the Paralympics?
So there was a lot of traveling at that time, a lot of World Cups I had to do. And at the same time, I was juggling having a family back home. So it was a lot of time away from home, but at the same time, it was a lot of training, nutrition. So much goes into preparing for these games that people don't see in the background, like all the support from your family and friends and all the working out you have to do and the time on snow. It was a challenge again.
Of course, what were some of your routines and rituals like training and competing?
So my rituals would be 4 days a week. I would get up early in the morning and have my breakfast ready, get my daughter ready for school every morning. And then I would head over to Copper Mountain where I would train for about 4 hours on snow. I would leave there. Then I would, 2 to 3 days out of the week, I would head to the gym. And after that, I would get home and prep meals for that evening and the next day to take with me. So that was like a daily routine for me, 5 to 6 days a week. Even though I was on snow 4 days a week, but the other days I still had the gym, I still had other things I was doing that was preparing me for the games.
In 2018, what was that feeling like going to prepare for the games and making that games?
So the feeling for preparing for the games, I looked at it as any other training that I was doing. It was the same. I trained the same way as I would if I was going to a USASA race, as I would a World Cup, as I was going to look at those Paralympic Games. I was trying not to make myself too nervous about getting to the games.
Of course, leading up to the games, what was that feeling like knowing that all of your hard work paid off and that you were going to experience that magical moment?
So just the thought that I was actually going to experience being at the Paralympic Games, that I was actually going to go to South Korea and be with my other teammates and meet people from all over the world that are also going to be competing was an experience that I can't even explain to you how it felt inside. It was like constant little butterflies flying around in me.
Of course, when you got your Paralympic gear, what was that feeling like putting that Paralympic gear on for the first time, having the Team USA and the Argonauts symbols on?
I was very proud. I was proud that I've made it there. I was proud that all the challenges that I faced to get there, I was able to get through them. So when I put on that jacket, I was like, this is it. this is truly, I have made it there.
Of course, once you got to Sochi in the Paralympics, what was that feeling like going down the slopes of Sochi?
So I'm going to have to stop you there. It was South Korea.
What was that feeling like getting to go down the slopes of South Korea?
So I did struggle quite a bit with that. My mindset wasn't right when I got there, and it threw me for a complete loop. I couldn't get out of my head. I had these thoughts like, I don't belong here. I'm not as good as everyone else. And honestly, that really affected how I rode that day at the Paralympics. And I wasn't prepared mentally. I was prepared physically to get there, but mentally, I had not prepared how I was going to feel when I got to the top of that course to actually run the course. So it was so much in my head, I did not perform as I wanted to.
Of course, how did that prepare you? And then what did you do once you were in your head to enjoy the moment in the Paralympics?
So at that very moment, it was really hard for me to get out of my head. It took me, once I got to the bottom of my run, and even though I didn't perform as I wanted to, but I saw everyone down there cheering and still clapping, it warmed my heart. And I said, well, I may not have performed how I wanted to, but look at all these people that are here for me and still cheering me on. So that's how at that point, then I said, okay, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine.
Of course,
Yeah.
what was that feeling like once you made it down the slopes and you saw all of your hard work paying off?
It was a beautiful feeling. What really made it special was the crowd that was there, my friends and family that were there, and the people that I've met that week at the Paralympic Village that were actually sitting there watching me ride down the course.
How was that feeling like obviously having your friends and family there with you at your first Paralympics?
It was a great feeling to know that they were there. They traveled a long way. My husband missed work, my daughter missed school. So it was very special for them to be able to be there with me and cheer me on.
Of course, what was the feeling like getting to live out your Paralympic dreams and making it to the biggest stage?
Once I made it to the Paralympics, I knew at that point, if I set my mind to something, I can do it.
Of course, following the Paralympics in chain being chain, what were some of the things that you accomplished after the Paralympics?
So when I got back from the Paralympics, that's when I started to realize that I really need to work on my mindset and see myself differently and change how I think and feel about things. So when I got back, that's the first thing I challenged on myself. And it took me a little bit because, once you get back from those games, you're like, okay, what am I going to do next? I have made the Paralympic team. I've made the biggest goal I have ever made for myself. And now what am I going to do now? So after working on myself for a little bit, I've decided I was going to be a life coach and a snowboard coach and help other athletes reach their dreams.
Of course, how does that feeling feel like to have Paralympian behind your last name and know that you're always going to be a Paralympian?
It feels like I have reached the highest peak I could for myself at that time. And I feel like now my daughter and my family, my future family is all going to know who I was and what I accomplished. And that should be an inspiration for others in my family to live their dreams and follow their dreams.
Of course, what was that feeling like getting to receive the ring and having the US symbol on it along with the Paralympic symbol?
It was once again, it was surreal. I got to represent my country and having the symbols, that the Paralympic symbols on my ring or my jacket, or what they were in a few places. Every time I see them now, I think I'm a Paralympian. I've been there. I've done that.
Of course, what is that feeling like getting to meet your fans and having them recognize you and ask for your autographs and photos with
That was strange because I've never ever had anyone ask for my autograph before and taking pictures with people. And I felt proud of myself. And I was like, I can't believe these people want my autograph.
Of course, after the Paralympics, and you were talking about getting back into life outside of Paralympics, what was that transition like from going from being a Paralympian to life outside of Para?
It was a struggle for me because I was so used to my routine of training every day and having this goal in front of me that I had already reached. So then I thought, well, maybe I'm going to go for the next Paralympic Games. And so I started training again, and COVID came around. And of course, we knew how that went. We still had the Paralympic Games, but that took the wind out of my sails. And I chose at that time not to continue training for the Paralympics. But at that point, I also decided I'm going to become a coach and start coaching other athletes, other adaptive athletes.
Of course, what were some of your favorite memories and moments competing in the Paralympics?
Being in the Olympic Village and meeting people from different parts of the world was pretty awesome. And then the evening ceremonies before the games, and we were all there together walking through the stadium and the show. All those things were, everything just added up to one great memory for me.
How have you been able to use your time as a Paralympian and competing at the Paralympics to help you to now be able to coach future Paralympians?
So from my own experience and learning what it took to get there, I'm able to share this with other people now. And I'm able to share it in a way, in a perspective of someone who's been there, not just a coach who wants to get you there. I've been there and I know what it takes to get there. So this helps me coach other athletes.
Of course, as a coach, are you only coaching para snowboard or are you coaching other sports?
Right now, I'm only coaching para snowboarding.
What is that like, obviously seeing those future para snowboarders make it into the Paralympics as a coach, knowing that you made it as an athlete?
Oh, wow. So that I just saw someone that they haven't made it to the Paralympics, but they just did it wonderful in the World Cup this year. And I was like a proud mom, just seeing this person who just went from just learning how to ride about 3 years ago to being at the top of their game at the World Cups this season was like, oh, like a proud mom just looking at her like, you did it.
Who are some of the people that you look up to in the sport of para snowboarding?
Amy Purdy, she's the first one that I met. And she inspired me to become a Paralympian. And then on the way there, I've met other athletes that have pushed me to become a better athlete. And I'm so bad with names, but yeah, she was my biggest inspiration of all of them.
Of course, what were some of the things that you learned from Amy Purdy as a Paralympian?
To follow my dream, to work hard, that to get where you want to be, you have to work to get it. No one's just going to give it to you. You have to earn it.
What are some of your future plans after retirement?
But now that I have retired, my plans are to coach other para athletes in snowboarding. Who knows, I may do something else also, but for right now it's snowboarding. And also to be able to coach them on not just on the snow, but about mindset and what it takes to be at the top of your game as an athlete.
Of course, how has that transition been like from going from being a professional athlete to then retiring and getting into coaching?
It was at first I thought it was going to be difficult because I thought a lot about it before I decided to get my coaching certification. But once I did it, it was actually a pretty smooth transition and it's fulfilling. Like I wake up in the morning when I get to work with an athlete, like ready to do this. Like I can't wait to see what their progression is going to be today. And I know where they are today, it's going to build for tomorrow. And a year or two from now, they are going to be on that world circuit trying to get on the Paralympic team.
Of course, looking back on your career, what would you tell your younger self getting into the sport of para snowboard?
Let's see. I would tell myself that it's just as important to work on your mind as it is on your body. And don't let other people's comments or thoughts of what they're thinking influence what you do. Just worry about yourself and be the best athlete that you can be, because you can't control anyone else.
What advice would you give those future people that are looking to get into the sport of snowboarding?
Ride a lot. Get on that mountain as much as you can, and get a coach, get it with a program, and just keep doing what if you love snowboarding, you just keep practicing and riding and competing, and you'll have the opportunity to get to the games.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to compete at the Paralympics for the first time representing either Team USA or Canada?
Repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
What advice would you give people that are looking to compete for the first time at the Paralympics to represent either Team USA or Canada?
Have fun. Enjoy the journey to get to those games. Each ride that you do is the building onto the next one to get you to those games, and enjoy every minute of it.
What advice would you give those Paralympians and even Olympians that are going through that process of retiring as a professional athlete and life outside of sports?
I would say find a way to stay involved. Help the younger generation get to help them accomplish what you have accomplished. Give them advice when they ask for it, and sometimes give them advice even when they don't ask for it, because we are their mentors. And I think that's very important.
What advice would you give those Olympians and Paralympians that once they retire, they want to get into the sport, still stay in the sport, whether it's coaching or being anything in the sport?
We always need volunteers. There's always a club you could volunteer at. There's events throughout the country for para athletes throughout the year that we could go and volunteer at and just stay involved.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
I am at Arlene_Cohen on Instagram, and the same on Facebook.
Thank you again, Arlene Cohen, for your interview, and best of luck in your future, wherever it may hold you.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Arlene Cohen, for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.